Hey, hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to go over absolute value equations and what their graphs look like. So the first thing we need to do is we need to talk about the general form. So an absolute value equation has a lot of stuff going on, and it would look like this. Y equals A, and then you'll usually start your bracket, and it'll be bx minus h, close your absolute value bars, plus k. So this is in general. Okay, so this is like the formula, if you will. So in general, that's what an absolute value function would look like. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're first going to look at each equation, and we're going to determine what the value is of a, b, h, and k, and then graph it from there. Another thing we need to talk about is the vertex. That's usually where your absolute value bar or graph bends. So right where it actually makes that perfect cut. So that's usually the vertex is always at, how can we say this? The opposite of k over b, comma, I'm sorry, not the opposite of k, it's the opposite of h. Opposite of h over b, comma, k. So that's going to be your vertex. The opposite of h over b, comma, k. That's always the vertex. And it'll make more sense as to why that is whenever we get to the harder problems down towards the bottom. Right here, these ones look super simple, so you may not need to really go in depth like we just did there for the vertex. So here we go. If I am going to figure out what A, B, H, and K are, according to my problem over here, number 1, my A value would technically be a 1. My B value would technically be a 1. My H value is going to be the opposite of minus 4. So what's the opposite of minus 4? Positive 4. And then my K value usually is a plus K or plus some value at the end there. And in this case, I don't have one. So it's a 0. So now I know all my letters. So now let's figure out my vertex. My vertex is the opposite of H over B, comma, K. So my vertex is going to be the opposite of H. So the opposite of H is going to be, okay, maybe it's not quite right. H is technically, I guess it would be a negative 4. Because then the opposite of that would be, I was thinking of the opposite of H for my answer for that letter. It is actually negative 4, I'm sorry. So the opposite of negative 4 is 4 over B, which is 1, comma, K. My K value is 0. So when I actually graph this, what is 4 over 1? 4 over 1 is the same thing as 4. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 4 over 1. It's just 4. Okay, and this will make a lot more sense when we get down to the harder problems. So we're going to go plot a coordinate point on my graph. So 4, comma 1 would be right here. 4, comma 1. All right, so from here, we're going to pick values to plug into my equation up here I'm going to pick values to plug into this. Okay. Pick values to plug in for x, and we're going to figure out what my y value is so that I can go and plot some more spots on my graph. So from here, we have values for x. So we look at your vertex, pick values that are on the left of it, pick values that are going to be on the right side of it. So on the left side, we have 3, 2, and 1, and on the right side, we have 5 and 6. So those are going to be the numbers that we're going to plug into our equation. So if I plug in for x comma y for my table, so I can figure out values for x and values for y, so I can go plug them in on my graph. So x is going to be 1, 2, and 3. Those are my values on the left side of my vertex, and the values on my right side of my vertex are 5 and 6. So let's plug those values into my equation and graph it. So if I plug in 1 for x, get 1 minus 4, and 1 minus 4 is negative 3, and the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. All right, 2. If I plug in 2, I get 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. Absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Plug in 3, I get 3 minus 4 is negative 1. The absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Plug in 5, I get 5 minus 4 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is still 1. And then plug in 6, you get 6 minus 4, which is 2. Absolute value of 2 is still 2. So now we're going to go plot all these points on my graph, connect them all, and then we have my absolute value graph. So 1 comma 3. So 1 comma 3, 2 comma 2, 3 comma 1, 5 comma 1, 6 comma 2. And as you can see, here is your graph. All right, that may have been a little rough to kind of understand, so let's try to do another one. I got a total of 4 of them we're going to do, or I may just do 3 of them and have you guys pause the video and try number 4 on your own. So, number 2. So let's figure out what A, B, H, and K are so we can figure out my vertex, and then we can actually plug in values for X and Y, or for X and figure out what Y is. So in this case, my A, B, H, K. A is 1, B is 1, H is 4, and K is 0. Remember, all you gotta do is look back at the general form over here in order to figure out those values for A, B, H, and K. Okay, because A is technically right out front. I'll do this in red for you. So that would be a positive 1 here, there's a 1 here, and then there's a plus 0 right here. So hopefully that kind of helps you visualize why A is 1, B is 1, H is 4, and K is 0. So here we go. Vertex. Remember, it's the opposite of H over B. So the opposite of 4 would be negative 4 over 1, comma, K. My K value is 0. So my vertex is really just negative 4, comma, 0. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go graph that. So I go over to negative 4, comma, 0, and I put a dot. Now I can pick values for X and Y in order to graph it. So values that are on the left side of my vertex would be negative 6 and negative 5. values on the right side of it would be -3, -2, -1. So here we go. If I plug in -6 up there in my equation, I would get -6 plus 4. -6 plus 4 is a -2. Absolute value of -2 is 2. Plug in -5 for x, you get -5 plus 4, which is -1. Absolute value of -1 is 1. Plug in -3, you get -3 plus 4, which is +1. Absolute value of +1 is 1. Plug in -2 for x, you get -2 plus 4 is a +2. Absolute value of +2 is 2. And -1, when you plug that in, you get -1 plus 4, which is 3, and the absolute value of 3 is still 3. So now let's go put all these dots on my graph. So I got -6, comma 2, -5, comma 1, -3, comma 1, -2, comma 2, and -1, comma 3. So there we go. There we have it. There's my graph. All right, let's just do one more for good measure, and then I'm going to let you guys do the last one, and you'd be more than welcome to pause the video at that given time and try out that problem. After we get done with that one, we're going to do some harder ones. So here we go, number 3. Do the same thing we did on the previous two. So we got A, B, H, K. A is 1, B is 1, H is -3, and K is 0 again. So my vertex is going to be -3, comma 0, or -3 over 1. Remember, it's the opposite, or I'm sorry, I totally did that wrong. It's the opposite of H, which is 3, over B. Well, B is 1, so 3 over 1 is still 3, comma 0. So there's my vertex. So let's go put that on the graph. So 3, comma 0. And then let's plug in values for my x to figure out what my y would be. And we do that by picking values on the left side of my vertex. So on the left side of my vertex, and pick values on the right side of your vertex so that you can see which way it goes. It may even end up going downward at some point as well. So let's figure this out. So values on the left side of my vertex would be 1 and 2. And then on the right side, we got 4, 5, and 6. So 4, 5, and 6. All right, so let's plug these values into my equation for x and then see what y is whenever we actually plug it in. So if I plug in 1 for x, I get 1 minus 3. And again, all I'm doing is I'm taking this 1 and I'm plugging it in for x, and I'm seeing what it equals. So plug in 1, you get 1 minus 3. 1 minus 3 is -2, and the absolute value of -2 is 2. Plug in 2. So if you plug in 2, you get 2 minus 3, which is -1. And the absolute value of -1 is +1. All right, now we got a 4. So plug in a 4. So 4 minus 3 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is still 1. Okay, now we got 5. Plug in 5. You have 5 minus 3, which is a +2. Absolute value of +2 is 2. Now do the same thing with number 6. Plug in 6, And you get 6 minus 3, which is positive 3. Absolute value of positive 3, still 3. All right, so let's plot all these dots. So we got 1, 2, 2, 1, 4, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3. So there you go. There's your graph. So you are more than welcome to pause the video and do number 4. And you can actually look at these ones as well to help you figure out how to do number 4. And you're more than welcome to pause the video, try that out. Alright, so now let's move on to the harder ones. Alright, these ones look a lot more difficult. 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to do 2 of them. I'll do the 2 hardest ones. So I'm thinking that's looking like number 8 and perhaps number 5. So I'll start out doing number 5, and then I'll go down there and do number 8. And then I'll let you guys pause the videos and do number 6 and number 7 on your own. So number 5. Do the same thing we did in the previous problems to where we figure out what A, B, H, and K are. Okay. So A is 1, B is a negative 3, H is looks like 0, and K is a positive 3. So that means my vertex, remember it's the opposite of H over B. Opposite of H over B. So the opposite of H, which is 0, over B, which is negative 3, comma, K. So there's my vertex. And what is 0 over negative 3? 0 over negative 3, what is that? Well, 0 over negative 3 is actually just 0. So my vertex is 0, comma, 3. So I'm going to go to 0, comma, 3. I'm going to put a dot. And then I'm going to pick values on the left side of it. So on the left side, I have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. And on the right side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would just pick the first 3 to the left and the first 3 to the right so that I know which way my graph kind of goes. Does it go really up and really narrow? Does it kind of get flatter? And what really happens here? Or does it really just continue just like the other ones? So let's make a table, x comma y. We have negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, and then 1, 2, and 3. All right, so let's plug these values into my equation and see what happens. So this is going to be a little bit harder, so hopefully you pay attention on this one. Here we go. So we're going to plug this negative 3 in for x. So taking this negative 3, we're going to plug it in for x. So what would we have? We'd have something that looks like this. Y would equal the absolute value of negative 3 times negative 3. Close the absolute value bar, plus 3. So what's negative 3 times negative 3? Well, a negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. So the absolute value of 9 is 9, and then add 3 to it, you get 12. Do the same thing with negative 2. So I plug in negative 2. I'm going to get negative 3 times negative 2, which is a positive 6. And the absolute value of positive 6 is 6. And 6 plus 3 is 9. All right, now plug in -1. You get -3 times -1. -3 times -1 is a +3. Absolute value of +3 is 3. And 3 plus 3 is 6. All right, plug in number 1. So -3 times 1 is -3. Absolute value of -3 is 3. And then you add 3 and you get 6 again. All right, plug in 2. You get -2 times, or -3 times 2, which is -6. And the absolute value of -6 is 6. And then we have to add 3, and that gives us a total of 9 again. Hopefully you kind of see a pattern here. You got 6 and 6, you got 9 and 9, so that means my last one's going to be 12. If you follow this pattern, right here, 6 goes with 6, 9 goes with 9, 12 goes with 12. Hopefully you could follow that pattern there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go graph all these. So at -3, we're all the way up at 12. So that's like way up there. Obviously, it's not even on my graph. So I can't even put that one on there. -2, 9. So at -2, I got to go all the way up to 9. 9, again, all the way up at the very top up here somewhere. Because there's 6. And if I keep going, there's 7, 8, 9. 9 would be all the way up here. So I'm not going to graph that one. So let's keep going. -1, 6. See if I can graph that one. -1, 6. Okay, yes, I can graph that one. All right, now let's do a +1, 6. So it'd be right here. And then the other ones would obviously be off the graph. So this guy is going to look like this. It's going to go up and up forever that way. And up and up forever that way. And that's what that graph would look like. All right, let's do number 8 down here. And then I'm going to let you do number 6 and number 7 on your own. Just like before, we got to figure out your A, B, H, K. Your A is 1, your B is -3, your H is a +3, and your K is a -2. So this is why it's important to actually figure out what A, B, H, and K are, because then it's not too bad to figure out what your vertex is. In this case, shouldn't be too bad. Vertex. The opposite of H over B. So the opposite of H is -3 over B, which is also a -3, then comma K, which is a -2. And what is -3 over -3? Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So my vertex is 1, -2. So I'm going to go plot that on my graph. So 1, -2 would be down here. And then values on the left side of my vertex would be over here. The right side would be over here. So the left side is here. Right side is here. So my values on the left would be 0, -1, and 2. Values on the right side would be 2, 3, and 4. So I make a table. Values on the left side we said were -2, -1, and 0. So -2, -1, and 0. And then on the right side we got 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. So we're going to plug these into my equation up there. We're going to see what we get. And then we're going to go graph them all. And then we'll be able to see our graph of the equation. So here we go. If I plug in -2, So here is where you might need a calculator if you have one. If not, you're going to have to do it by hand. So if I plug in -2, I get -3 times -2 plus 3, close my absolute value bar, and then -2. So you got to figure out what the inside is going to look like first. So we got -3 times -2. We have -3 times -2. -3 times -2 is a +6, and 6 plus 3 is 9. So the absolute value of 9 is 9, and then -2. 9 minus 2, 7. Now you have to do the same thing again, but now you're actually going to have to replace that -2 with a -1. So now we have -3 times -1 is a +3. And then we're going to add 3 to get 6. And the absolute value of 6 is 6. And then -2 gives you a 4. Now we're going to plug in 0. -3 times 0. -3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. Absolute value of 3 is 3. And then -2, you get a +1. Now we'll do the same thing again, but now we're going to plug in 2, 3, and 4. So if I plug in 2, I get -3 times 2, which is -6. So -3 times 2, it's a -6. Add 3, you get -3. Absolute value of -3 is 3. -2 gives you a 1. All right. Keep on rolling. Now we got to plug in a 3. So -3 times 3 is a -9. -9 plus 3 is -6. -6, the absolute value of that would be a +6. And then -2, you get a +4. Okay, plug in 4. You get -3 times 4 is a -12. -12 plus 3 is a -9. Absolute value of -9 is 9. And then we're going to subtract 2, and you get a +7. Okay, so from here, we go and we plot all our dots, and then we know what our equation looks like. So -2 comma 7, so go over to -2, go up to 7, put a dot. And in this case, 7 kind of falls off our graph, so, I mean, we could kind of tell where it would be. It would be somewhere up here. My little pink dot would be somewhere up there, but I'm not going to draw that one. So the next one would be -1 comma 4. So -1 comma 4. Next one is 0 comma 1. And we got 2 comma 1, 3 comma 4, and then 4 comma 7. And again, that one kind of runs off the graph. So here you go. Here's your equation. Looks like that. My biggest thing is first, 100% you have to find the vertex. This is super duper important. You have to find the vertex. That's your starting point. If you can't find the vertex, it's going to be rough. Finding the vertex helps you figure out what values you want to plug in for x down here, because all you got to do is look at the values on the left side of your vertex and on the right side. So left side of the vertex, right side of the vertex. Then you would know what numbers to pick so that you don't have to waste your time just picking numbers from -6 all the way through, because then it'd just be really hard. So find your vertex, that's the very first thing. Find your vertex, that's super duper important. And then from there, it should be a piece of cake. So I'm going to let you try number 7 over there. Do the same thing we did on number 8 and number 5. So you're more than welcome to pause the video here and try number 7. Alright, now I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to number 6. And you're more than welcome to pause the video here and try this one. Okay, now we're going to move on down to the hardest problems down here. And these ones look like this. So I will do number 10 and you can do number 9. So it's relatively the exact same thing we just did up at the top, except the only exception is I have a number out front here. Okay, that's basically the only thing that's a little bit different. Okay, so let's go ahead and find all my values, A, B, H, and K. A is 3, B is -3, H is 2, K is -4. So, like I just stated in the previous problem, the vertex is the most important part. So my vertex is going to be the opposite of H over B, comma K. Alright, so this one is super duper hard. So, what is a negative divided by a negative? A positive. So my vertex is really 2, comma 3, 2 divided by 3, comma -4. So 2/3, comma -4. So 2/3 would be in between 2 or 1 and or 0 and 1. 2/3 is in between 0 and 1. So what you have to do is you have to figure out where 2/3 would technically be. So 2/3 would technically be right up, be technically right around here. That'd be about 2/3, somewhere right here. That's 2/3. So 2/3, comma -4. So that would be right down here. And if you can find the vertex and then look at a graph, you'll actually probably be able to, especially if it's multiple choice, if they give you a multiple choice question, all you got to do is find the vertex, and 9 times out of 10, there's only one with that vertex. And all you got to do is just click on that graph and you're done. Finding the vertex is so important. You can actually find the answer right off the bat, especially if it's multiple choice, just by knowing where the vertex is. Alright, so now we're going to pick values on the left side and on the right side. Honestly, you could probably just pick one value, maybe even just 2. You don't have to do 3, 6, 9, 12, however many values you want. You can really probably just do 1 or 2 values that's to the left and 1 or 2 that's to the right. So if I'm looking at this, to the left of this guy, I'm going to have these values over here. So these values here. So that would be 0 and -1. So let's make a table. And let's plug in -1 and 0. And then what's 2 values to the right of that? Technically, we could use 1 and 2, right? 1 and 2. So 1 and 2. So that's a little bit less work on y'all. And you're more than welcome to do that. You don't have to pick 3 and 3 on both sides. That's a lot of work. So if you just want to pick 2 and 2, that's fine. So here we go, -1. If I gotta plug these values in over here for my x value. So I'm gonna have y equals 3, and then absolute value bar 3, and then in parentheses a -1 plus 2, close it, and then -4. So basically we gotta do all this stuff by hand unless you have a calculator. So -3 times -1 is a positive 3. 3 plus 2 is 6, or 3 plus 2 is 5. So we have the absolute value of 5 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. And then 15 take away 4 is 11. So it's way up there. All right, let's plug in 0. -3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. Okay, absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's a lot more manageable. There we go. We can actually graph that one. All right, now let's plug in the value for 1. So now we have -3 times 1, which is -3. -3 plus 2 is a -1. Absolute value of -1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 minus 4, -1. All right, now let's plug in 2 and let's see what we get. -3 times 2 is a -6. -6 plus 2 is a -4. Absolute value of -4 is 4. So 4 times 3 would be 12. Then minus 4, you get 8. So now we're going to go graph these, if we can graph them. I think the only two that we really can graph are these two right here. And that's okay. So we have -1, 11, can't graph that one. 0, 2, so 0, 2. And 1, -1. And 2, 8. Probably be somewhere way up here somewhere. Okay, so this graph really looks like this. Ooh, that's a doozy right there. All right, so now I'm going to zoom out and I'm gonna let you guys try to do one like that on number 9. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's probably pretty lengthy. I don't know how long it is. I'm sure it's really long, but hopefully it was a good refresher on how to do all these, because I know these problems get pretty difficult. And I'll probably give you a practice assignment over it, and then that'll probably be that. So I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope to be back after my 14-day quarantine. See you guys later.